Previously, we saw the plans to make the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat that sits atop it, the table of the showbread, as well as the menorah, the lampstand or candlestick. Exodus 26:1. Moreover, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue and purple and scarlet stuff. With cherubim skillfully embroidered shall you make them. So we have the tabernacle, which means the temple of meeting, the temple of the congregation. It's a portable structure that the Israelites are going to be able to move around with them as they go on their wilderness wandering. They wander to a spot, they can set up the tabernacle, and then Moses can go in there and he can communicate with the Lord to receive instruction on various things, or if he has a question, he can go there and get answers. The layout and the configuration of the tabernacle is important, and we see in the New Testament it explained in more depth to the symbology of the tabernacle and how we as individuals through Jesus Christ are able to rebuild our relationship with God and how worship works. So there's a lot going on here with the tabernacle. Exodus 26:2. The length of one curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits. Each of the curtains shall measure the same. So the curtains are about 42 feet long, 6 feet wide, 13 meters long, or 1.8 meters wide. Technology at this time was very different than today. I don't think we had the loom. I don't think we had all this modern machinery for making fabric. So when we look at the length and the width of this curtain, we see that it's relatively narrow. So you could have a person on the end making the fabric, kind of stitching or whatever it is that they do to make fabric. And it's relatively narrow, so they don't have to get up and move back and forth. They could just be in one spot and just kind of work from one side to the other, expanding the thread outwards to make this fabric. Whereas if it was made any wider than that, it would be far more complicated and probably a lot more difficult to keep the fabric straight in the production process. So it was really done to simplify the creation of this curtain, and because we got 10 of them being made, it lets more people work on making these at the same time. You get a parallel of input, which would result in a quicker output, resulting in the curtain actually getting done. There's probably some symbology to this that could be expanded on as well, some sort of dual parallel meaning as to having multiple people coming together to work on this thing. I don't know what that is though, so I'll just leave that thought there. Exodus 26:3. The 5 curtains shall be coupled to one another, and the other 5 curtains shall be coupled to one another. We saw in the first line where it said to make 10 curtains, so 5 of them are going to be joined together, and then the other 5 are all going to be joined together. The tabernacle is portable, and this is achieved by making many of the parts of it in sections, modular sections, so that they can be separated. This curtain can be rolled up or folded up, and then it can be hauled away, and then the other half of it, the other 5 that are stitched together, can be all folded up and it can be moved away as well. So by stitching them together, we now have 2 28 cubits by 20 cubits curtains, 42 feet by 30 feet. 13 meters by 9 meters. Exodus 26:4. And you shall make loops of blue on the edge of the last curtain in the first set, and likewise in the second set. 26:5. 50 loops you shall make on the one curtain, and 50 loops on the edge of the last curtain, that is in the second coupling or set, so that the loops on one correspond to the loops on the other. So there are loops that are going to allow these curtains to come together and to join together to become one, and they're offset from one another so that when they join together it becomes a complete curtain, while at the same time giving it the ability to separate and become 2 so they can be rolled up when it's time to move the tabernacle. So when they're joined together, then we'll have a single curtain that's 28 cubits by 40 cubits, 42 feet by 60 feet, 13 meters by 18 meters. I hope you'll forgive me for repeating the dimensions of these curtains, for I found it very confusing figuring out how these curtains were joined together and what their total size was after they're joined together. Exodus 26:6, and you shall make 50 clasps of gold and fasten the curtain together with the clasp. Then the tabernacle shall be one whole. So now we have these gold clasps, and this is what's going to hold the loops together. So the clasp goes between the two loops or whatever. Maybe it's like a little piece of gold that kind of wraps in there. Not entirely sure what the mechanism is, but now we got our big curtain. Now, something I should probably mention is that at the start of this, we have the blue, purple, and scarlet. So the thread is made of multiple colors. Of course, blue is the symbol of heaven. It's the color of the sky. Red is the color of blood. So the blood offering and the properties of blood in the sacrifice and whatnot. And of course, purple is the color of royalty, the color of kings, the color of the ruler. So there's a lot of symbology built in there. The curtains are also going to have the embroidery of the cherub, or the cherubim, plural of cherub, so an angel. So we kind of got the angel overlooking things or whatever. So there's some symbology stuff there going on. Similar to the mercy seat, how we had the mercy seat with the cherubs looking inwards at the center of the Ark of the Covenant. Now we got these cherubs here on the outside on this curtain. So I was looking at some artistic renderings of what this curtain looked like, and some of them, they take the individual segments of the curtain and have each one a different color, so it's almost like a striped curtain when it's all tied together. Other ones, they got the different colors incorporated in different ways, like all the colors on each individual segment, and then they have the embroidery. Some of them, they use a white as well. I think white is like the symbol of purity, and there's some stuff that way. And I think they get that from the first line when it refers to the linen, because linen, when it's not colored, would be white. So I don't know if there was white in it as well or not, or what this thing really looked like, but some people depict it as 4 colors instead of 3. Just thought I would point that out there. Essentially, the tabernacle is like a big tent, and this covering goes over top of the tent, and then we have more layers that go on top of the first layer, and it gets described in more detail later, and we'll look at that more later. But essentially, this curtain is like a giant tent that's placed over top of the tabernacle. It's the first layer. Exodus 26:7, and make curtains of goat's hair to be a second covering over the tabernacle. 11 curtains you shall make. So linen is a natural product. It comes from plants. It's the plants are refined or whatever, and the fibers are used, and then they spun or whatever, and that's how you make linen. Now, goat's hair is different than wool. Wool is another animal product, and goat's hair is not the same as wool. Goat's hair is usually quite a bit nicer. Cashmere is like a type of goat's hair, and that's probably more along the lines of what we're looking at here. There's another variant, mohair, which it's just a more fine and luxurious product, but it's an animal product rather than being a plant-based product, and it is a lot nicer than sheep's wool, and that's what we're using here is goat's hair. Exodus 26:8, 1 curtain shall be 30 cubits long and 4 cubits wide, and the 11 curtains shall all measure the same. So we are looking at 45 feet by 6 feet, 35 meters by 1.8 meters. So the goat hair curtains are of a different size than we saw with the linen curtains. They're slightly longer. And we also have a different amount of them. We're going to have 11 of them, whereas we had 10 of the previous type. Exodus 26 and 9, you shall join together 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves, and shall double over the 6th curtain in the front of the tabernacle to make a closed door. So our first one that's made with the 5 sections is 30 cubits by 20 cubits. And the second one, which is made up of 6 sections, is 30 cubits by 24 cubits. 45 by 30 feet for the first one, 13.5 meters by 9 meters. 45 feet by 36 feet for the second one, 13.5 meters by 10.8 meters. Exodus 26 and 10, and make 50 loops on the edge of the outermost curtain in the one set, and 50 loops on the edge of the outermost curtain in the second set. 26 and 11, you shall make 50 clasps of bronze, and put the clasps into the loops, and couple the tent together, that they may be one whole. So the metals that are used to join these curtains together have their own significance and meanings. The linen curtain used gold. Gold does not rust. Not a whole lot of stuff can attack gold. It's very interesting in how it behaves. So it's a symbol of purity and righteousness. And it's also a symbol of wealth and riches. There's not much gold. Well, there's a decent amount of gold on the planet, but it's really hard to get and extract a lot of it. So there's really not that much out in the open available. So it's, by there being a constrained amount, there's not much of it. It has an inherent value that way. So gold is kind of the symbol of richness. It's your royal metal. So the goat's hair curtain is joined together with bronze, and bronze is kind of your symbol of strength and endurance and judgment and atonement. It's got its own meanings or whatever, but bronze is an interesting material nevertheless. Exodus 26 and 12, the surplus that remains of the tent curtains, the half curtain that remains, shall hang over the back of the tabernacle. Some of the difficulties with the analysis of the tabernacle when we're going line by line like this is that the frame is not explained till later. So we have these curtains and they're to be draped over something, but that something isn't really defined. I know before I said it was like a tent, but when I say tent, I usually think of like a tent that you would go camping in, which is not really quite the style that it's like. Well, maybe the bigger ones, like the 30 people tents, maybe they're a little bit closer. I think something that is more relatable would be one of those outdoor garages, the one that's like a metal frame on the inside, and then it's kind of like a tarp that kind of covers it, and then it becomes kind of an enclosed temporary parking garage or garage for like a vehicle. I mean, you could store a vehicle in there if you don't fill it with junk and then you can't fit anything in it anyway, like somebody that I know. Anyway, so we got this like frame, and then we got these curtains that are going to be going over it. And the first curtain that we see is going to cover kind of the full length of it, and it just kind of drapes over it, and that's kind of it. The second one, which was the goat hair one, goes over top of that, and it's a little bit longer, and that portion that makes it longer is folded over, so it becomes the back of the tabernacle. It kind of encloses the tabernacle. And we're going to get a couple more layers to kind of fill this thing in and complete it before we get into even more intense stuff with the layout of the things that are in the tabernacle and what they all do and what the meanings are of all of them. But we're starting off with our structural tent. Exodus 26:13, and the cubit on the one side and the cubit on the other side of what remains in the length of the curtains of the tent shall hang over the sides of the tabernacle, and on this side and on that side. So there's some overhang of 1 cubit, 18 inches, 45 centimeters on this side and that side, so both sides of it. So the first covering didn't go all the way to the ground. It had a space. This one, because it's a little bit longer and is over top, it's going to be able to reach the ground a little bit more. And because it had that extra section, it's covering the back as well. Exodus 26 and 14. You shall make a third covering for the tent of ram skins tanned red, and a fourth covering above that of dolphin or porpoise skins. So another 2 layers as a covering will be over top, and they're made out of much stronger material. The first is the ram skin that's tanned red. Red, of course, is used symbolically of blood and the sacrifice, and represents those aspects as well as other ones. And then we have over top of that this dolphin and porpoise skins. In the King James it just says badger skins, and some other translations just use sturdy leather or to that effect. So that's what it is. There's a tough outer layer that's going to protect all of this. Exodus 26 and 15. And you shall make the upright frame for the tabernacle of boards of acacia wood. So they're not exactly in a rainforest right now. There's not necessarily the greatest selection of wood in the desert and some of these harsh climates that they're in right now. Acacia wood is present. It's a very tough and durable wood, and it's also what is available in that generalized location. So that's why it's being used in all these different things. It was also used in the construction of the Ark of the Covenant, as well as, well, I guess everything that we saw that was made of wood was using acacia wood. So it's very good stuff. Exodus 26 and 16. 10 cubits shall be the length of a board, and 1.5 cubits shall be the breadth of one board. 15 feet long and 27 inches wide. 4.5 meters by 67 centimeters, 67.5 centimeters. So a pretty serious chunk of wood, I would say. It doesn't mention the thickness of it, and there's some debates about how thick this thing was, or these beams were. Some people say beams is a better word to use than boards, and we'll see. Exodus 26 and 17. Make 2 tendons in each board for dovetailing and fit together. So shall you do for all the tabernacle boards. I've only dabbled in woodworking a little bit, but what we're looking at here is joinery. So the ability of joining 2 pieces of wood together. And this is a method of joining 2 pieces of wood together where you cut or carve particular shapes in both sides that they can slide in together and lock themselves in place. Maybe it needs assistance of a mallet where it kind of, you tap it in and it locks it. Or it could have like a wedge where it's like the 2 pieces, they come together, and then there's another piece of wood that gets knocked in between the 2 and it locks them in place. And then that wedge can be removed, and then the 2 boards separate easily. So it's a reusable joint, so they'll be able to make something and then they'll be able to take it apart and then put it back together again, and it's a reusable thing. And it's also an alternative to nails and screws. They probably had nails, screws probably not. So a nail, we think of our modern hammers and stuff, it's not insane to pull one out, but back in those days it was probably a lot more tricky and challenging. So they got really creative with the use of joinery. In traditional old school carpentry, the joinery is absolutely incredible what they can do. So that's what I think they used here, is they had really clever joinery so that when they came time to set this thing up, they could just lock the boards in place and they're good to go. And then when it's time to move it, they can disassemble it just as easy as they put it together. A lot of care and time and craftsmanship goes into making good joints. The tendons are the parts of the wood that stick out, and they would press into the recesses made into the other piece of wood. If you're interested in seeing more stuff with joinery and just how cool they can get, I suggest watching videos on Japanese carpentry where they do joinery, and it is just amazing what they can do with wood. Exodus 26 and 18. And make the boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards for the south side. 26 and 19. And you shall make 40 silver sockets under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under each board for its 2 tendons. These boards are pretty big, and it's going to be kind of tricky to keep them upright. So the technique that's going to be used is tendons and foundation blocks. That's essentially what these silver sockets are. They're a form of foundation block. So on the bottom of these boards we have these 2 tendons, which you use for joinery, and they're going to fit into these silver sockets. There's 2 silver sockets per board, 1 for each tendon, and this means that when they go to take it apart, they can separate the board from each of the sockets. So then you got 3 things to carry instead of 1 that's just outrageously heavy. I guess the sockets are probably really heavy as well. So you got 3 not so outrageous things to carry instead of 1 absurdly ridiculous thing to carry, because it would be very heavy. And this gives a method of making it more portable. And then we got the 20 boards on the south side. Exodus 26 and 20. And for the north side of the tabernacle there shall be 20 boards. 26, 21. And there are 40 silver sockets, 2 sockets under each board. So just as many on the other side of the tabernacle. Exodus 26, 22. For the back or west side of the tabernacle you shall make 6 boards. 26, 23. Make 2 boards for the corners of the tabernacle in the rear on both sides. So we got 6 in the back, plus 2 more for the back corners. So that's 8 total. And the corners, they're going to be a little bit special. They're a little different than the other ones. Exodus 26 and 24. They shall be coupled down below and coupled together on top with 1 ring. Thus shall it be for both of them. They shall form the 2 corners. So we have some rings that are added to them that will be used later on for making it more sturdy. Exodus 26, 25. And that will be 8 boards and their sockets of silver. 16 sockets. 2 sockets under each board. Very consistent. So now that we know how wide these boards are and how many there is beside each other, we can come up with the dimensions of the tabernacle, being 45 feet long by 15 feet wide by 15 feet high, or 13.7 meters by 4.6 meters by 4.6 meters. Exodus 26, 26. And you shall make bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards of one side. 26, 27. And 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the rear of the tabernacle, for the back wall to the west. So the tabernacle bars here, these acacia wood bars, are going to be used to reinforce the tabernacle, to keep it steady and strong and straight, and so that it doesn't move around at all. Exodus 26, 28. And the middle bar halfway up the boards shall pass through from end to end. 26, 29. You shall overlay the boards with gold, and make their rings of gold to hold the bars, and overlay the bars with gold. Looks like everything's going to be covered in gold again, like we saw with some of the other stuff, and that's good. There's the symbology behind that. And then we have these rings that are placed on these boards, and then these bars, they go through the rings. And that's what kind of holds the bars to the boards. Exodus 26 and 30. You shall erect the tabernacle after the plan of it shown you on the mountain. 26:31. And make a veil of blue, purple, and scarlet stuff, and fine twined linen, skillfully worked with cherubim on it. So this sounds very similar to what we saw on the first curtain. Same kind of idea, same kind of design, and we'll see where this is used in a little bit, because the Bible follows the same format. It tells you the piece of material before it tells you what it goes on. And of course it's got the cherub embroidered on it as well. Exodus 26 and 32. You shall hang it on 4 pillars of acacia wood overlaid with gold. with gold hooks on 4 sockets of silver. So this is the same style of construction we saw before with the boards and then having them covered in gold and then they sitting on these silver sockets. And these boards are going to be a little bit different in that they have the hooks or the mounting places so that the veil is able to be hung on them. And this is used to divide up the tabernacle so that it has more rooms in it, as they'll be specified in a second. Exodus 26 and 33. And you shall hang the veil from the clasps, and bring the ark of the testimony into the place within the veil. And the veil shall separate for you the holy place from the most holy place. So the holy place is the tabernacle, and the most holy place is this section here at the back of it, where the Ark of the Covenant is going to be stored, along with a couple other things. We're going to see where this stuff goes inside the tabernacle, and it's quite interesting. Exodus 26 and 34, and you shall put the mercy seat on the Ark of the Testimony in the most holy place. The mercy seat is almost always kept together with the Ark of the Covenant. Actually, I think it's pretty much always there unless something is being put in the Ark of the Covenant or something is being taken out of the Ark of the Covenant, which doesn't happen very often. Exodus 26 and 35. And you shall set the table for the showbread outside the veil in the holy place on the north side, and the lampstand opposite to the table on the south side of the tabernacle. So if you entered into the tabernacle, to one side you would see the showbread, and on the other you would see the lampstand. And to the back there would be the veil, and then when you get through the veil, that's where the Ark of the Covenant would be stored. And that's just kind of how the layout of the tabernacle is inside the tabernacle proper. Exodus 26 and 36. You shall make a hanging to form a screen for the door of the tent of blue, purple, and scarlet stuff, and fine twine linen embroidered. So this is the same, or at least it seems the same, as the first layer of the curtain with that embroidery and that color combination. And that would kind of make sense just to kind of finish it off, having a front door. Exodus 26 and 37, you shall make 5 pillars of acacia wood to support the hanging of the curtain, and overlay them with gold. Their hooks shall be of gold, and you shall cast 5 base sockets of bronze for them. So here we have the front supported by more pillars, and these pillars are coated in gold and have gold hooks on them so that the curtain can be hung on the pillars. The big difference with this set is that now we got bronze sockets, foundations, rather than silver. So the front's a little bit different than everything else, and I'm sure there's a lot of symbology behind using bronze instead of silver. And even then, I guess we didn't really look at the meaning of silver in the Bible, but that's what we got. So silver is the symbol of redemption and atonement and purification, and bronze is the symbol of judgment and atonement and strength and endurance. So we've just went over the tabernacle proper, the actual tabernacle, and then inside of the tabernacle we have the Holy of Holies, and that's kind of cool. There's also a whole section on the courtyard of the tabernacle, and there's a lot of symbology and stuff going on there as well. There's just a lot of symbology as far as the tabernacle is concerned, and a lot of stuff is explained better in the New Testament. It kind of explains why things are the way they are, but there's just a lot to it, and you can really dig deep in this, and we're just kind of doing a skim cut here. We're just going over the surface. We haven't gone too deep, and you can really get bogged down going at the tabernacle, but it's probably worth it. There's a lot going on there. It's a pretty cool thing, but in this study we're not going to go that deep in the tabernacle anyway.